Other people's pain kept me awake or woke me up every few hours. I lived in Boston, and I was on Beacon Street, which runs, it's 4 lanes. It runs from the Common basically uphill for 3 miles. At the top of Beacon Street, near where I lived, is a hospital called St. Elizabeth's. And every night, a couple times, ambulance would drive by with their lights on and their siren blaring, even though there was nobody on the street. Bars close in Boston at 2 a.m., so nobody really does anything after that. And so I kind of got used to that, and one morning, I guess midnight, I was woken by an ambulance going by, and I felt thirsty, so I stood up to go get a drink, and when I stood up to full height, I felt like I had been stabbed. I had a pain that went from here to here. It felt like somebody had taken a knife out of my kitchen, heated it on my stove, and then just gouged me with it. And I thought that was really strange, and so I got a drink and I went back to bed. And 2 hours later, another ambulance went by and woke me up, and I felt thirsty again, and all my pain was gone. So I stood up, and when I stood up, I realized the pain had moved to right here and was inside a little more and was just kind of throbbing. It didn't feel like it was burning anymore. And the thought just pops into my head, maybe I have appendicitis. So like any full-grown independent adult man, I got onto WebMD and I typed appendicitis into the search terms, and I got this checklist of symptoms. One said dull pain near the abdomen or the navel, which moves and grows in sharpness as it moves to the lower right quadrant. Check. Nausea, I hadn't noticed, but my mouth was watering a little bit. I was also sweating a lot. And fever of 99 to 102 was on the list. I also saw that loss of appetite was on the list. That never happens to me. And there was also swelling, which makes sense, swelling of the stomach. And I also had no idea that happened. So I've been this size since I was roughly 3.5 years old. So I just decided WebMD wasn't the best idea for my diagnosis. So I called my friend Nell, who was a night nurse, and she answered her phone for some reason. And I just told her I felt like I had appendicitis. I read her my symptoms, not from WebMD, just from what I felt. And she told me to go to the hospital. And then she told me to wait for her because she was getting off her shift. She knew I'd try and take a taxi. So she came and got me and drove me to the hospital, and I waltzed into the emergency room, and I told them I had appendicitis, and that they remove my appendix as soon as possible. And the girl at the desk said nothing. She just popped her gum and handed me a chart. So I start filling out the chart, I sit down, and Mel has to go to sleep, so I send her home. I start filling out the chart. I knew most of the information, but I kind of got stuck. So like any full-grown independent adult man, I called my mom. I asked my mom what our insurance was, because I was still on her insurance, thankfully. And she told me, she gave me all the information. I hadn't told her why. I hadn't told her why I was calling. She kind of figured it out because it was 2 or 3 in the morning. And I told her not to come, not to show up in Boston, to let me call her the next day when I felt better and we'd figure something out. So I hung up the phone, I handed the girl my chart, and they took me back to a room. And long story short, I stayed in that room with no TV for about 7 hours. And I got visited 1 hour in by a nurse who asked me a couple questions. She was kind of nice. And then other than that, once in a while, somebody, either a med student or an intern, somebody would like pop their head in and look at me awkwardly and then like leave. I didn't see a doctor, nobody else had any questions. I could just feel this spot slowly but noticeably getting bigger. So around 10, maybe 11 in the morning, I'm not quite sure, this doctor rolls into my room carrying my chart, and he's followed by 6 or 7 of these idiots. And he walks in and he looks at me, and he looks at them, and he looks at me, and he looks at them, and he like starts to yell at them. I don't remember what he said. Partway through he says, "How old is he?" And in my head I thought, I'm 25, stupid, it's on your chart. But he keeps yelling at them. He looks at me and he says, "You have appendicitis." And I was like, yeah. And he told me he'd get the OR set up. So they all left. I could hear him yelling at the idiots as they left. And so they wheeled me up to the OR. I got into the waiting or the staging area. And I had never been in the hospital before. I had broken a bunch of bones and been injured in sports. I'd never been in the hospital. And so it was new for me. And as I was looking around, I kind of enjoyed watching nurses try to wake people up, and I was just it was just a mess. And I hadn't heard anybody the whole time I was in the room, so I was kind of interested in what goes on. My surgeon walks up to me, and to this day, he's kind of my hero. He has a gray beard, he had on a bandana, and he's super buff, and he had like a utility belt, like freaking Batman. And he just walks up to me and he says, "Calvin, I'm your surgeon, and there's two ways to do this." He says, "We can go in laparoscopically. I can use a machine. We'll just fill you up with gas, and then that's how it works." He's like, "I'm a little bit old school though. I like to just cut you open, pull it out, snip it off, sew it up, and put it back. It'll take longer to heal, but you'll have a pretty awesome scar." And that's what I had been waiting to hear all the time. I wanted this. If I had to go through this, I wanted the scar. So I told him that, and he told me he would just poke me 3 more times, and he did. I told him which one hurt the most. It was the second. And then he pulled out of his utility belt, he pulled a ballpoint pen, he clicked it, he drew a line on me, and he said, "Let's go." So we went. And they gassed me, the surgery went fine. I don't remember any of it, obviously. And they wheeled me back to my room. I laid down, I took a nap. And when I woke up, my mom was in the chair sitting next to me, which was a turn of events. I said, "Hello, Mom." She said, "Hello, Calvin." And I said, "What are you doing here?" She told me that she couldn't not come, which makes sense because she's a mom. And then I asked her the more pressing question. I said, "How long are you going to be here?" Her answer was, "You're going to be mad." So I asked her again. I said, "How long are you going to be here, Mom?" And she said, "You're going to be mad." I said, "How long?" And she said, 2 weeks. And I was super mad. I was a full-grown, independent adult man. I didn't want to hang out with my mom for 2 weeks in my studio apartment while I could do nothing. But as I was thinking that, it kind of dawned on me that 26 years before that, my mom had been sitting in a bed, very much like my bed, with a hole in her stomach, very much like the hole in mine, as I was the first of 5 C-sections that she had. I was her oldest, so she had me, and that softened me a little bit. Enough where I told her if she would buy all the food and let me choose the restaurant, she could stay. I would let her buy her own mattress. So that was nice. So my mom is the opposite of a city person. She's a germaphobe, and she lives in Idaho where I grew up, and the more money she accumulates, the farther from civilization she gets. And so I knew she would just go crazy in Boston for 2 weeks. And so I proposed that we rent a car, and since I couldn't really go to school, but I could sit, that she could just road trip us around all of New England while I healed. And so that's what we did. And we had some really interesting experiences. We got stuck in a blizzard and lost and had to stay in a super creaky old bed and breakfast in New Hampshire. We went out into a park after dark and tried to cross a slippery breakwater to touch a lighthouse. She made me turn back. And then we just talked up a storm because we drove for hours and hours and hours. And during that experience, I got to know my mom much better than I had before. And she took the time to kind of show me some of her scars that she had. And I knew about some of them. I knew that her biological father, who I'm named after, died when she was 2. He died awesomely. That's a different story for another day. And her brother had made fun of her, only full-blooded brother had made fun of her religion ever since she had joined it when she was a kid. I didn't know how far the extent of her extended family mess went with drug addictions and motorcycle wrecks and mental illness. And I learned that her stepdad, my grandpa, who didn't have a lot of time for us, was an undiagnosed hoarder and owned an airplane hangar full of farm material and woodworking tools. I had no idea. And so through that experience, my mom kind of showed me how to share with someone your life. She opened up to me about a lot of her scars more in detail than she had, and some of her open wounds that weren't yet scars. But I had this super amazing opportunity because of my surgery to spend time connecting with somebody I had lived with my whole life, but who I had never taken the time